The sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of the courtyard, radiating heat off the brick walls of the complex. In this city, the trenches were divided by blocks, and survival was the only currency that mattered. Down at Kill Them All block, KTA for short, things were quiet for the moment. Smokey stood on the third-floor balcony of the KTA apartments, looking down at the courtyard. Behind him, the apartment was crowded. Money was tight, the product was moving slow, and the stress of the struggle was bubbling just under the surface. He had his 5 brothers right there with him, and every single one of them was trying to find a way out of the mud. Sosa was sitting at the kitchen table, counting a meager stack of 20s, his face grim. Famous and Trey were by the window, keeping watch on the alleyway below. Reese was leaning against the doorway, quietly cleaning a heavy black Glock. They weren't just a family. They were the backbone of the whole KTA game that claimed the entire apartment complex. Times were hard, and the drug game was a brutal grind, but the KTA crew kept a tight grip on their territory, dreaming of a bigger play to finally get rich and elevate out of the trenches. "We need a bigger play," Smokey said, walking inside from the balcony and tossing a small baggie onto the table. "This small-time block hustling ain't getting us out of these KTA apartments. We're just surviving." Sosa sighed, shoving the cash into his pocket. "We need to link with the guys down the street at Bluefield, see what they got going on. If we pool our resources, we can buy in bulk and control the strip." Famous nodded from the window. "Yeah, but the city is a powder keg right now. Everybody is hungry, and everybody is looking at everybody else's plate." "Let 'em look," Reese muttered, his voice cold as he slapped the loaded magazine back into his Glock with a sharp clack. "We KTA for a reason. They know how we rock." The link-up at Bluefield. A few blocks down, the Bluefield apartment stood tall. The KTA crew was locked in tight with the Bluefield guys. It was a mutual respect built on years of surviving the same harsh streets. Over at Bluefield, the operation was run by 3 main bosses: Curtis, the brains who calculated every financial move; Jackson, the muscle who kept the block secure; and Pooh. Pooh was a wild card. He didn't care about the slow grind of counting dollar bills. He was hot, reckless, and always ready to ride out and kill the ops at a second's notice. Smokey and Sosa walked into the Bluefield courtyard, finding the trio chilling by a parked SUV, enjoying the temporary quiet of the afternoon. "What's the word, Smokey?" Curtis asked, nodding smoothly as he leaned against the hood. "We trying to expand the set, get the money flowing faster," Smokey replied, dabbing up Jackson. "The city is full of chaos right now, but if we lock in, we can take over the market." Pooh stepped forward, a dangerous grin spreading across his face as he patted the heavy bulge in the waistband of his jeans. "If we expanding, that means we stepping on toes. Tell me who we spinning on. I'm ready to put some paint where it hurts. Let's go clear out the competition." "Chill, Pooh," Jackson grunted, his massive frame shifting as he threw a warning glance at the hothead. "Let's see what the money move is before you start sparking up the city." The surrounding threats. While KTA and Bluefield were laid back trying to map out a path to real wealth, the other blocks in the city were watching. The balance of power in the hood was fragile, split between 2 other major factions who were just as hungry for power. Over on the next strip sat the White Stones blocks. That territory was held down by Big Dot, Terrence, and J Money. They were quiet getting their money, but they were deeply entrenched and heavily armed. J Money had the block's finances locked down, while Big Dot and Terrence ensured nobody crossed their boundaries without paying a heavy price. Then, on the opposite side of the district, were the Redfield apartments. That complex was governed by a tight-knit, ruthless circle: Kevin, Mitch, Dion, and Damien. They were ambitious, cold, and looking for any excuse to expand their borders into KTA and Bluefield territory. Setting the play. Back inside the main KTA apartment, the afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the project walls. Curtis and Jackson had walked over from Bluefield to sit down with Smokey and his brothers. A map of the city's drug blocks was laid out on the kitchen table. White Stone's got the north side locked. Redfield is holding the west, Curtis analyzed, tapping a pencil against the table. If KTA and Bluefield combine our packs and run the center, we make double the money. But the moment we drop our prices and take their customers, the piece is over. Sosa looked over at Famous, Trey, and Reese. They were all tired of the struggle, tired of living hand-to-mouth in the complex. "We've been playing it safe for too long," Smokey said, his voice dropping low as the room went dead silent. "We link the blocks, KTA and Bluefield. Let's go get this money, and whatever happens next, we deal with it together." From the corner of the room, Pooja smiled and chambered around. The calm was officially over. The next morning, the sun rose over KTA block, painting the cracked pavement in a hazy orange. The block was already alive with motion. Word had traveled fast through the grapevine that KTA and Bluefield were pooling their weight, and the energy in the streets shifted instantly. The laid-back vibe was officially replaced by the tense electrical hum of a major play in motion. Smokey, Sosa, and Famous were down in the courtyard, orchestrating the runners. They were flooding the central avenue, undercutting the usual prices to draw out the city's heavy buyers. "Yo, Smokey," Trey called out, jogging down the concrete stairs from the balcony, his phone in his hand. "Bluefield just hit me up. Curtis says the re-up just landed at their spot, but the White Stones guys are already creeping around the perimeter." "They're noticing," Sosa said, adjusting the hood of his sweatshirt. "We knew they would. Famous, go grab Reese from the apartment. Tell him it's time to shadow the runners." The intersection confrontation. By noon, the Central Strip was hot. The KTA and Bluefield alliance was working perfectly. Money was coming in faster than it ever had before. But the chaos of the city always demanded its tax. At the main intersection dividing KTA territory from the White Stones, a black sedan slowly rolled to a stop. The windows rolled down. Inside sat Big Dot in the passenger seat, his eyes locked onto KTA's runners. Standing on the corner, holding down the block for White Stones, were Terrence and J Money. J Money stepped off the curb, his hands buried deep in his pockets, stepping right into the path of one of Smokey's younger runners. "You're in the wrong lane, lil bro," J Money said, his voice smooth but dripping with an explicit threat. "This is White Stones territory. You pay a tax here or you leave." Before the runner could even stutter an answer, the roar of a high-powered engine echoed down the block. A beat-up SUV tore around the corner and screeched to a halt, cutting off the sedan. The door flew open and Pooh bounced out of the driver's seat. His eyes were wide, a manic adrenaline rush already pumping through him. He didn't come to talk finance, he came for the smoke. "Move back or get put back," Pooh yelled, unzipping his jacket to fully expose the heavy drum mag weapon strapped to his chest. "KTA and Bluefield run this line now. What you wanna do, J Money? What you wanna do, Terrence?" From the passenger side of the SUV, Jackson stepped out, his massive frame imposing a silent, deadly warning. He didn't draw a weapon, but his hand rested heavy on his hip. "Keep it pushing, Dot," Jackson warned, his deep voice carrying across the pavement. "Don't start a war you can't afford." Big Dot stared through the windshield of his sedan, his eyes shifting from Jackson to the unhinged grin on Pooh's face. Terrence slowly backed away, gripping the handle of the piece tucked in his waistband. "This ain't over," Big Dot grunted from the car. "You blocks think you can just rewrite the rules. We'll see how long your supply lasts." The sedan hit the gas, speeding off into White Stones territory, leaving J Money and Terrence to melt back into the shadows of their own block. Redfield makes a move. While the tension was boiling over with White Stones, the real danger was brewing on the opposite side of town. The Redfield Apartments crew wasn't known for talking, they were known for calculating. Inside a dimly lit apartment in Redfield, Kevin, Mitch, Dion, and Damien stood around a kitchen island, watching a burner phone buzz with text updates about the intersection standoff. KTA and Bluefield are putting all their eggs in one basket, Mitch said, lighting a cigarette and leaning against the counter. They're so focused on White Stones right now, they left their back door completely wide open. Smokey thinks he's a genius, Dion sneered, tossing a heavy blade onto the table. He's got his 5 brothers thinking they're about to buy their way out of the trenches. Kevin, the de facto leader of the Redfield crew, stepped up to the table. His face was entirely expressionless. He looked down at Damien, who was quietly loading fresh magazines into 3 different pistols. "We don't let them get rich, and we don't let them get strong," Kevin said coldly. "If KTA and Bluefield take the center, we get squeezed out. Damien, take Dion and a couple of the guys. Hit the KTA apartment complex tonight while Smokey and the Bluefield bosses are celebrating their little daytime victory. Strip their stash, break their runners, and show them who really owns the chaos in this city." Damien smiled, a cold, empty look in his eyes. "Consider it done." The gathering storm. Back at KTA Block, the sun was dipping below the horizon again, but the atmosphere was entirely different from the night before. The money was piling up in the safe, but the air felt heavy. Smokey stood on the balcony, looking at the quiet courtyard below. Reese was sitting on the railing, his Glock fully loaded and resting on his lap. Sosa, Famous, and Trey were downstairs checking the locks on the security gates. "It's too quiet," Reese muttered, looking down the dark street toward Redfield. "Pooh barked loud today. White Stones ain't just gonna let that slide, and Redfield has been ghost all day." Smokey gripped the iron railing, his eyes scanning the shadows of the apartment complex. "Keep your eyes open, Reese. The money's coming in, but the tax is about to be paid in blood."